Good evening, tubers. Matt and Roy back once again. Well, I hope you guys are having a great day. I know that I have been. Been having a very, very busy day today. Well, let's get the thing out of the way that you guys are probably really here to see, and then we'll talk about what I want to talk about. Well, I should say I want to talk about it both, so it really doesn't matter. If you guys have watched the vlog, you will know that I have purchased the 2000 Buick LeSabre. It was a weird story. This morning, I got up and I was going to wait until tonight because we were supposed to have a friend come over. We were going to have some company, and I had a lot of things to do this morning. So I messaged the guy that had it and I said, I'm sorry. Is there any way that we can do it tonight at 5 or 6? And he was actually kind enough to bring the car to me, which I was totally shocked. So he did that. We squared everything away. He had the title with him, no lien. So I signed off on the title, and then I actually drove him back because he didn't have another ride. By that, it actually worked out well because by that point in time, I finished doing everything I needed to do in the morning, and I was free for about an hour or two. So that worked out well. So I came back home, and there was a little bit of a drama. Pradkins wants to know how the new car is. I'm getting to that. I'm getting to that. Well, everything was fine except when I went to start it. Now, remind you, he drove it here. So it was running fine. But when I went to start it after it had been sitting for about 2 or 3 hours, I noticed that it was a little weak starting. I'm like, that's odd. Let me leave it running for a few minutes. Maybe I left the light on or something. So I let it run for a few minutes, probably about 10, 15 minutes, shut it off, went to start it, and all I got was click, 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 click. And at this point, I'm like, uh-oh, I think I know what's wrong. And so does Pradkins. You got it right. The battery had gone bad, which is amazing to me. It was an Autocraft Gold battery. It was one of those advanced auto parts batteries, and it was only 2 years old. It had a build date of December of 2016. So we're talking about a 2-year-old battery. So I took the battery out, which is a big pain in the butt because the battery in the LeSabre is under the back seat. You have to take the back seat out. You actually have to remove the vent because it's in the car. It actually has to be vented to the outside so the vapors don't build up in there and kill you. So I had to remove the vent. I had to remove the terminals, and I had to remove a bolt. It's actually bolted in place, believe it or not. And finally was able to barely get the battery out because there's barely enough room to maneuver the battery from where it sits in the well and then the top of the front part of the seat. So you kind of have to do one of these things. You have to grab each side and kind of shimmy it to the left and then pick it up. Suffice that I took that out. I went over to O'Reilly's. $143 later, I had a new battery. Put it in, and everything's fine. The car is running fine. Thankfully, it was just the battery. And the reason I knew it was a battery, this car has one of those car computers. So basically, I was able to go in and see that the alternator was charging the battery at 14.5 volts, which is normal. That's for that car, that's normal. But as soon as I turned the key off and went to accessory with the old battery, I noticed it was going from 11.8 volts down to 10 really quick. So that was another telltale sign that the battery was shot. Yeah, Pradkins, you got it. I told you got it. Yeah, needed a new battery. So that's done. After that, while I was at O'Reilly's, I picked up a Wix oil filter, some of the O'Reilly's high mileage 10W40 oil, 5 quarts of that, and some Prolong, and I did an oil change in the driveway. I actually drove the car up on 2 of these ramps that my dad has. That was not fun. I wasn't even sure if I'd be able to maneuver under there, but I was. I got the oil change done, and I actually got a chance to look underneath the car, and I am pleasantly surprised. That car is clean as a whistle underneath. No leaks and no rust. Even more important, there's literally no rust. And I noticed that when I looked in the back that it looked like it had a newer exhaust system on it, and it also had 2 brand new shocks in the back. So that had been replaced. I'm not sure. I don't think this was a LeSabre custom. So I don't believe this had the air ride ever in it, but at least it has new shocks in the back. and this thing rides great. Eric Brunhammer said, the Autocraft Gold battery has a 3-year warranty. You probably could have used his name and phone number and got a new one for free. You know, I did look into that, but unfortunately, he wasn't the one that purchased the battery. He was kind of a middleman. He bought this car from another lady, and I guess she had purchased the battery, and he didn't have the receipt. I already tried that. I knew that they had 3-year warranties. Would have been nice. It would have saved me $150. My gosh, I wasn't expecting to spend that. But the good news is the car doesn't need anything else. Literally everything else on it works. There's 2 little minor annoyances that we have to fix. Number one, well, I should say 3. Number one, the headlight buttons, because on this vehicle they have buttons. The buttons are stuck because everything's automatic. This is a 2000, has daytime running lights. So apparently no one has ever used that. The buttons to turn on the headlights on the parking lights. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that out, and we're going to take the whole thing apart and clean it out, and it should be fine. That's just something we'll do on a weekend. The only other thing the other two things we have to do, the windshield washers don't work, but that might be because they're frozen up. It's about 35 degrees outside. I hear the windshield washer motor working, the fluid motor working, so I don't think that's the problem. But Dad said that's an easy fix. Either way, we'll be able to do that at home. And the only other thing is one of the high beam lights is out, and that is literally it. This car, believe it or not, this car had passed inspection in April, and it would still pass inspection today, except for the high beam light that's out. But we'll get that replaced probably in the next week or so. Other than the oil change, I actually also buffed out the headlights because they were really fogged over. They're looking really nice now. This car doesn't need anything. I mean, it's amazing. This car is in really phenomenal shape for the price that I paid for it. And I was able to talk him down a little bit. I wound up getting it for basically $1,500. And I think that was a great deal for a car that's this nice. Inside, there are no rips in the seats. The carpets are clean, everything. Ruben says he's going to watch the vlog. Yeah, if you didn't watch the vlog yet, this may not make a heck of a lot of sense. So try and watch the vlog first. The owner's manual is in the glove box. It came with the owner's manual. It came with 2 remotes and 2 keys. So whoever had this really took care of it. And that's all I'm going to say about it. That's really all I have to say about it right now until we get it up and going and on the road. But what I really want to talk about is what I have learned so far as it pertains to used cars and things you want to look for when buying a used car. And you guys can interject here a little bit if you like. That's all right, Eric. You can watch the vlog later. I think you'll be able to pick this up pretty quickly. Things that I have learned about buying a used car, what to look for. Number one is some of the easiest things to look at is the cosmetics. Are there a lot of dents and dings in the car? Look at the overall paint, make sure that's in good shape. And then more than that, go to either side of the car and look down. In other words, put your eyes right against the body of the car and look down and see if you can find any dents or dings or kind of waviness where there may have been some body damage repair. And if that looks good, chances are the person that owned it took good care of it. The people that don't take good care of their cars generally don't care if they get a lot of dents, dings, and scratches. So that's kind of an easy one to look at. Number 2, open it up and look at the interior, look at the seats, make sure the seats are in good shape, look at the carpet, make sure that's not all torn up or anything. And in my case, I could tell that the person that had it really took good care of because it has 136,000 miles on it. I've seen cars with that kind of mileage have seats that are totally torn up, carpet that's ripped to shreds, and that is not the case in this car. As a matter of fact, the seat is in excellent condition. The driver's seat especially, that's what you want to look at because, let's face it, that's the seat that's used more than any other seat in the car. Next, you want to open up the hood. You want to look in the engine compartment. You want to check all the fluids, make sure they're all topped up. You don't want to. You want to look at the oil. You want to make sure that the oil isn't low or milky looking. If it's milky looking, then you may have a head gasket problem. Look at the transmission fluid. Now, interesting thing about the transmission fluid. Yes, you do want it to be clean, but you don't want it to look overly clean, like somebody just changed it. If it looks really clean, if you pull that dipstick out and you put it on your finger, what you do is you rub it against your finger or rub it against a paper towel. And if it looks like super red and super clean, like somebody just changed it, that can be a sign that they're trying to hide a transmission problem, and you may want to avoid that vehicle. And then the next part of this is a little bit more in depth. Depending on where you are, it may not be the easiest thing to do, but you need to get under the car. Specifically, you want to start under the front where the engine is in most cars. And you want to see if there are any leaks. You can easily tell if there are oil leaks, power steering pump leaks, water pump leaks, things like that. You'll see you may see a little puddle under the car. You can look there first, but if you don't see a puddle, you still want to get under there and look underneath the pans and see if there's anything leaking. And if there's nothing leaking, then you're pretty much good there. The next thing you want to do is go ahead and start the car up. When it's cold, you want to start a car up when it's cold, and you want to make sure there aren't any weird sounds, no knocking, no ticking, no grinding or anything like that. That could be a sign of a worn engine. And that's pretty much the extent of what I've done so far for the mechanics. Now, after you do that, you want to go ahead and look at the stuff for the inspection, such as you want to check all the lights, make sure the headlights, the signals, the tail lights are working. And then there's something that a lot of people forget, the dash lights. I kid you not, when I bought my 2003 LeSabre back in 2008, so it was 5 years old. It was only 5 years old, and it only had about 80,000 miles on it. I bought it during the day, so I didn't think anything of checking the dash lights. And when I got home that night, I realized that everything was out. Every dash light, the binnacle, in other words, where the speedometer, the tachometer, the fuel gauge, all that was out. The radio lights were out. I luckily was able to bring it back to the dealership, and they had to fix it under the warranty. But if you're buying a vehicle used from a private party, you're kind of SOL at that point. So I checked that on this one. All those lights work just fine. And then, of course, you want to check the heat and air, especially this time of year. The heat's really important. On this one, they both work just fine. And then you want to make sure that the blend door works. The blend door is what actually lets you change from the heat to the air conditioning. And if that's not working, you may go ahead and turn the heat off, go to the air conditioning, but you still feel heat coming out. And believe it or not, that's an issue on a lot of General Motors vehicles. A lot of people forget to check that out, and it's a very expensive fix. It can be hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get that blend door replaced, depending on your vehicle. That's pretty much it. Of course, you want to check the tires. The tires are important. You don't want to buy a used car and have to replace tires after a few hundred miles. The tires on this are not brand new, but they're in good shape. They'll last about another 5 to 10,000 miles. So about another year, and then I'll have to put tires on this. And that's pretty much it. If I'm missing anything here, which I might be, Eric Brunhammer and a few of the other more mechanically inclined people, you can make some comments here and let people know. So let's go to the chat section. I see we have a lot of people here commenting. Yes, this live stream is only going to be about cars. That's what this one is about, Ruben. Very good question. Chris Bartlett likes my new car. Thank you, Chris. I'm enjoying it too. If I didn't have to go change the battery out, I would have gotten it registered and insured today, but ran out of time. I almost didn't have time to do the oil change. I was treading the last bit of daylight just to finish the oil change, and of course the DMV closes at 5, and I knew I wasn't going to have time to get down there. Chris Barlow says, back soon. I have to hang out the washing. Go ahead and hang your washing out. I'm sure this time of year there, it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Ruben says, I'm not planning to drive when I'm old. I can walk just fine to avoid traveling by car. I can understand that. A lot of people when they're older don't want to drive, and I may be that way too. Right now, I don't mind driving. I actually prefer walking if I can. Like if I need to go to the store and our local store is maybe a mile or two away, I would actually rather walk, just get the exercise in. Flips May said GM and Ford are in decline. Yes, they are. They have been in decline for some time. Luckily, my LeSabre is a 2000, so that was when they were making cars to last, really. Yes, Flips, we know you like Japanese cars, and I've given you guys my reasons for not buying a foreign car. And take it as is. I'm sorry. That's the way I feel. Pradkins is asking about the stereo. This does have the premium stereo, the Concert System 2, I think it's called, with the 6 speakers. It's got 2 in the back, two in the bottom of the door, and then tweeters on top. And I think it might have a bass tube in the dash. I'm not 100% sure on that though. And this does have the CD and the cassette, but not the disc changer. It does not have the CD changer. I don't care about that though. And the CD player works fine. The cassette player works good. Needs a head cleaning, but I'll take care of that tomorrow. They have excellent sound systems. Even the ones that aren't the premium sound systems really sound great. Eric says, no matter what they claim, the first thing to do with any used car is a full tune-up and oil change. I agree on the oil change. Tune-up, it just depends. I mean, you can see if there are new wires on there. You really can't check the spark plugs, but at least on this Buick, I could tell that somebody had replaced the wires. And it's running fine. It's not missing or anything, so I'll probably hold off on the tune-up, at least for the time being. No lights on, no check engine lights, no service engine lights. Everything's working. The only thing when I first got it, it had the check tire pressure warning on it. And I was like, I wonder if this is like every other Buick I've heard of this era. And the tire pressure is fine, and it's just a broken sensor. So what I did is I checked the tire pressures, and they were all around 32. I think the front passenger tire was at 30. These particular tires have a max PSI of 42, so I put 40 pounds in there. And sure enough, when I went in, I reset it, and it says the tire pressures are normal. So that sensor actually works, believe it or not. Flips May says, I can't find any aftermarket stereos that match the inside of my cars. They all have obnoxious flashing LED lights. A lot of the newer ones do. You may want to check like wish.com. I heard a lot of people tell me they were able to get cheap, reliable stereos on there. Other than that, maybe just peruse Amazon or eBay. You might have some good luck there. Eric Brunhammer says, I also tend not to spend more than $500 for a used car. Haha. Yeah, I know you get some really good deals. Yeah, I wish I could spend that little on a used car. I mean, I bought I bought the PT Cruiser for 500, and that wound up being a total wreck. And I'm glad I'm out of that one. I was just stressing out so bad with that PT Cruiser. I knew from about the second or third day, honestly, I didn't let you guys in on it, but I knew from the second or third day that I had made a big mistake with that, because all these little issues started creeping up, and I'm like, oh man, what the heck did I just do to myself? Okay, Eric seems not to like my comment about buying a car stereo from wish.com. I know, Eric, buddy, I know that you've been burned by them before, so I'm not going to say anything else on that. That was just my personal opinion. Stick, if you want to, stick with Amazon and eBay. And Eric, if you have another better option for flips, you can go ahead and stick that in the comments section. Stephen Barber says, sorry I was not in the chat. I had to put the Dexcom in, and it's a struggle my first time. anything your first time is always going to be a struggle. That's okay. You guys, I don't hold a grudge. If you're not here for one live stream, that's fine. Believe me, I'm not the kind of person that holds grudges. Pradkins, yes, I agree. Pioneers. I've had a lot of Pioneer stereos in the past. I had one I installed in my 1992 Ford Taurus. I think I also had one in my 1988 Ford Econoline van, and they were great. I mean, they were cheap at the time. I remember the one I had in the van cost me about $60, and it sounded great. And I actually installed that myself. I don't like doing that anymore, but back then, I didn't mind doing that kind of work. Flips May, I discovered the 2003 Pontiac Vibe stereo will fit in my 2003 Toyota Matrix. Hence, they're the same car, actually. They are. They are almost identical. As a matter of fact, I think the Pontiac Vibe is actually a Toyota Matrix. It's not the other way around. So they're both good cars. A good friend of mine has a Pontiac Vibe, like a 2002 or something like that. They're pretty reliable cars. He has a lot of miles on it, and I asked him if he had any issues with it, and he said no. It's been a very reliable vehicle. Ruben says, Matt, when you buy a used vehicle, how do you register a used vehicle? You have to go to the DMV. You go to the DMV with a title. You go up to the counter. You have to pay the sales tax on the vehicle. And what they do is they issue you a new title in your name, and they give you the plates. And in my state, they give you the plates, and they give you these little decals to put on the plates, basically to tell you how long the registration's good. So you have to pay the tax and title, which is the registration, and the sales tax. It doesn't take long, at least here. It takes maybe about an hour to do the whole thing. Max O'Neill says, loving the photo of the thumbnail. Yeah, I did a search online and I thought that was kind of cool. That was kind of clever. It's not something that I made. It's just something I found in Google Photos or Google Images, and I thought it was really cool. It's a good point, Julian. He was saying that I could do Flips could get a junkyard stereo OEM. With the Pontiac Vibe, I'm thinking he probably wants to get a slightly better quality stereo, because I think that the Pontiac Vibe and the Toyota Matrix, they didn't have the best quality stereo. So I'm sure he probably wants something a little more up to date, maybe something with Bluetooth, something that can play MP3s, stuff like that. Chris Barlow said, it's done the same here, but the plates usually are already on the car. Yeah, I think it's like that in England, too. The plates actually stay with the car, not with the owner. Here in the United States of America, you actually get your own plates. You get them from the DMV. The previous owner, before they can actually deregister it, they have to go to the DMV and surrender the plates in. It's just the way they do it. Yeah, that is true. Because I remember watching Rogue Traders. It's a show from England, and they were showing how people were making counterfeit license plates, and they busted a whole. They did a sting, and they busted a whole bunch of people working out of a shed. And they were making fake number plates, as they call them. Yeah, Chris, we can personalize plates here too, though I probably wouldn't bother to do it with this car. They're called vanity plates. I'm not a vain person, so I don't see a point to getting a vanity plate. Rogue Traders, yeah, a lot of you guys probably know about that. It's a great show on YouTube. It's from the BBC. I think the only way to get it on the States is to watch it through YouTube. And I've probably watched every episode. Matt Albright and Dominic, I can't remember his last name, but those are the two hosts. Max Deal, you can get custom plates in the UK as well, but it costs a fortune if you want something decent. Costs a good amount here too. I think you pay about $25 a year. So I mean, it's not that bad. but then you also have to pay extra for the plates too. Yeah, it's really expensive. All right, tubers, I'm actually going to end the live stream here. This was never going to be a real long one. I just wanted to get that information out there. I thought that it would be very interesting for you guys to kind of learn from me what I've been through with buying these cars. And if I can think of anything else, I'll add it to the other live stream. I just want to make sure that, because a lot of you guys have told me through the comments that you're thinking about buying a used vehicle yourself, and I want to give you things to look out for, things that you may want to look at before you buy a car. And let me go through my head here and see if there's anything else that I'm missing. It's a good idea to look when you open up the filler for the oil, where you put the oil in the engine. You want to make sure that there isn't a lot of sludge around there, because that can also indicate an issue with the engine, or at the very least, somebody that didn't really change the oil enough. In my case, it looked just fine. And then on certain vehicles, when you do an oil change, when you take out the oil drain plug, there's a magnet on there, and that magnet will attract any metallic particles that may have fallen into the oil. You want to look on there. If you see any metal fragments, now you're not going to be able to do that when you're checking out the car, but once you get it home, if you do your own oil change, you want to look at that. If there are any metal fragments on there, then that means there's some type of issue in the motor itself. Let me see, Chris Bartlett, I bought one about 3 months ago. It's a GMH Viva. Yeah, again, I don't know those foreign cars, unfortunately. And last comment here, my mom's 2015 Chevrolet Malibu audio speaker, six speaker system. Yeah, a GM seems to have the best factory audio, factory radios. Then probably Ford, and right in the back would be Chrysler vehicles, especially the older Chrysler vehicles from the 80s and 90s, because those systems, those are cheap Infinity systems, and they were supposed to be so good. Infinity was a good brand, but whew, man, they really had a horrible sound. Really, Flips May says the new Buicks are bad quality. The paint starts coming off after 4 years. Man, I tell you, this car, and when I do the review of this car, you'll see how good the paint really is. I mean, this car is 18 years old, and with the exception of a few little scratches, this paint's almost mint. I'm telling you, whoever had this car really did take care of it. All right, tubers, that is it for this live stream. I hope you guys really enjoyed this. Make sure you watch the vlog. If you have any other questions, you'll get to see a little preliminary overview of the LeSabre, plus a cold start, or I should say just a regular start because it had been running. Please continue to like and subscribe. And as always, have a blessed day, everybody.